Okay, make sure everybody has their audio on their computers down. And if you're not talking, stay muted just so we don't get any feedback.
Yep. All right, seeing participants stream in, the attendees. Meredith, you're able to see that attendee list? Great. Oh, that's great. All right, folks, we're just allowing people to jump on the call, and we will be getting going just around 9 o'clock. Okay, once again, as folks jump on, we're just allowing more people to join the call, and we'll get started just a bit after 9 o'clock. Steve, I just promoted you to be a panelist. And if there are any other members of the committee on the list that may just be using a first name, do raise your hand. If I see you there, I'll make sure that as a SPDC committee member, I'll promote you to be a panelist as well. Okay, it's now 9 o'clock. We're just going to give folks a couple minutes since 9 o'clock was the start time to be able to jump on. They may be figuring out the technology. And so we'll allow folks who wanted to tune in, participate, just a couple more minutes to join the call. Once again, for all those who are just joining us, we're just giving a couple minutes for more folks to join. I'll note that in addition to the folks that we have in this Zoom environment, we have also other people watching via the live stream, graciously provided by Brookline Interactive Group. So we'll allow more folks to join us here and more folks to get the live stream up and running. And then we'll begin in just a moment.
Raul, can I remind everyone that they can also watch on Brookline Interactive Group's cable channels today, and we're streaming on YouTube Live as well as Facebook Live.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Those of you certainly also on Facebook Live, there is a share button that you'll see there. If you want, you can actually share this live stream with others in your friend network, or you can even post it to your own page. I did that last night with the emergency meeting of Brookline's Advisory Council on Public Health, and it worked out pretty well. So if you'd like to share this so others can watch and join as well, you're welcome to. Before we begin, for those of us who are listed as participants, that means those whose images everyone can see. If you could turn your cameras on if possible, unless your camera's not working, that'd be great so people can see exactly who you are. That would be very helpful. So Melissa, Sandy, Steve, that'd be great if you could do that. And of course, Debbie, I see you there as well too, so everyone can see who you are. All right, I think it's just about time to get started. Right. Here we go. Hello, and thanks for being with us today. My name is Raul Fernandez. I'm a Brookline Select Board member and chair of our Small Business Development Committee. I'm also here with Meredith Mooney, Brookline's Economic Development Planner, who staffs our committee, as well as a number of our committee members. Meredith, can you tell us which of our committee members are on the call?
Yes, so far we have Sandy Machado, David Lashinsky, Debbie Miller, Melissa Tapper-Goldman, Annika Sarin, Steve Silverman, Debbie Reisner, Ann Myers, might have already said her. And we also have Caitlin Starr, who is the committee's liaison to the Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations Office.
Fantastic. Thank you, Meredith. So before we begin, let me first give you just a bit of a background on the committee. The Small Business Development Committee, the SBDC, was established in the fall of 2019 to study and recommend methods to incubate, launch, recruit, and sustain small businesses in Brookline. Our membership consists of small business owners with representation from the Economic Development Advisory Board, the Brookline Chamber of Commerce, the Coolidge Corner Merchants Association, and the Brookline Village Business Association, as well as residents like me who are invested in maintaining thriving businesses and communities in Brookline. We have 3 subcommittees. They're focused on the regulatory environment for small businesses, the experience in commercial areas, and support for businesses owned by women and people of color. We're ably staffed by Meredith Mooney, with additional support from the division's director, Cara Britton. You'll hear from both of them today. Like many of you, our work has taken on new meaning in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic and public health crisis. When thinking of how we could best respond, we decided, among other actions, to host this virtual town hall to hear from those most affected by this crisis. I want to impress upon those who are joining us that our primary focus today is to share information with and to hear from small business owners and employees. All others are welcome to watch along and ask questions at the end if time permits. I do want you all to know that this meeting is being recorded and will be shared publicly shortly after it's concluded. Also, there are a few essential functions in Zoom that you should be aware of. First, the vast majority of you are currently set as attendees. That means that your videos will be off and your mics will be muted unless I, as the moderator, allow otherwise. You're welcome to participate in the chat and write to other attendees. However, should you want to ask a question of any of our panelists, you'll need to use the Q&A function. You should see both the chat and Q&A icons alongside others at the bottom of your window. I'll read most questions that you submit to the panelists. However, I may decide at some point to make you a panelist so you can ask your question live. At that point, you'll be unmuted and you can turn your video on, which I recommend, and you'll be able to speak directly with our panelists. Let me say this right now. This is a fluid and evolving situation. We'll share as much information as we have to date, and we'll do our best to answer your questions as fully as we're able. What we most want to hear today is about what you need right now and how we can advocate at the local, state, and federal level to make that happen. In addition to town staff, you have at least one select board member, myself, and State Representative Tommy Vitolo on the call. We're also expecting to be joined about midway by Congressman Joe Kennedy, who'll talk about the federal response to the crisis. So before turning things over to Brookline's Economic Development Director, let me kick things off by talking about the town's response to date. Over the last week, Brookline's COVID-19 task force, led by Town Administrator Mel Kleckner and Health Department Director Dr. Swani Jett, in consultation with the Select Board, took action to slow the spread, flatten the curve, and protect residents from contracting COVID-19. The town of Brookline has declared a public health emergency. In addition to our task force, we've established a local civil defense organization led by Fire Chief John Sullivan, which has given us additional powers to protect the public. We also activated our Advisory Council on Public Health, which met last night in an emergency meeting and will meet again tonight. All schools, libraries, and town buildings are currently closed to the public, as are the senior center and all playgrounds and play structures. All town-related events have been canceled for the foreseeable future, and no gatherings of 10 or more people are permitted in businesses, houses of worship, or anywhere else. The only exceptions are grocery stores and pharmacies. All restaurants and eateries in Brookline are prohibited from serving dine-in customers until further notice. Restaurants do have the option to provide takeout or delivery service. You'll hear more on that from town staff in just a bit. The town has also asked those conducting construction projects to voluntarily suspend those projects. Legislation is being proposed at the State House that would allow us the option of taking even more restrictive measures. Also, and this may be relevant to many of you, the Brookline Police Department will not be enforcing the following parking regulations during the town's COVID-19 emergency. They will not be enforcing 2-hour parking zones, the overnight parking ban, or parking meters. All other parking violations like fire hydrant, handicap, crosswalk, bus stop, or other violations will be enforced. I should also mention that in addition to all these actions, Governor Baker announced yesterday that all early education and childcare centers will be required to close by Monday. He may, at his discretion, announce additional measures in the coming days. Back here in Brookline, all town business continues to be conducted, albeit virtually. We're in the process of determining what to do about our upcoming election and town meeting in May. More updates on that to come over the next week or so. Folks, this is a real threat, and we are acting accordingly. As of Thursday morning, there have been at least 8,317 cases of coronavirus confirmed by lab tests and 147 deaths in the United States, according to a New York Times database. According to the CDC, there have been at least 256 confirmed cases in Massachusetts as of yesterday. While older people remain at gravest risk worldwide, a CDC report found that 38% of those who were required hospitalization in the US were aged 20 to 54. And nearly half of the 121 sickest patients studied, those admitted to intensive care units, were adults under 65. So what are the COVID-19 numbers in Brookline? Well, there are currently 8 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Brookline, and we are committed to taking further action as necessary and within our powers to limit the increase of that number. Succeeding in this critically important effort will require your active support. In addition to the restrictions that I've just mentioned, we've also issued guidelines related to social distancing, which means staying at home unless absolutely necessary and staying at least 6 feet apart from anyone who doesn't live in your home. We've also been reminding people to wash their hands regularly for at least 20 seconds. And in addition, to use hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol. I want to say this loud and clear. You can pass this virus on even if you are asymptomatic. That means that you can feel and appear completely healthy and still have this virus and give it to others. That goes for the generally young and healthy as much as anyone else. There's also evidence that suggests that the virus can live on for a time in the air and on surfaces, which makes social distancing and regular disinfecting even more critical. Information on this and everything I've shared to this point is available at brooklinecovid19.com. That is the official site for up-to-date information on Brookline's response to this crisis. Once again, that's one word, brooklinecovid19.com. With that, I'll turn things over to Cara Britton, Brookline's Economic Development Director, to talk more about our response and resources for small businesses and employees impacted by COVID-19, which at this point is all of us. Cara, please take it away. Cara, I'm going to unmute you. There you go. Or unmute yourself. There you go.
Good morning. My name is Cara Britton. I'm the Economic Development Director for the town of Brookline. We want to talk with you very quickly about what we've gotten done, what we're doing, and what we're still working on. As most of you probably know, we scrambled last weekend thanks to the Chamber of Commerce help in writing a letter over the weekend. And as a result, with the Transportation Division, Meredith Mooney and her husband posting up signs immediately the next couple of days to get 15-minute parking throughout the commercial districts so that more businesses can have pickup and delivery services as they try to adapt to these new conditions. We hope to continue that as a first priority whenever businesses figure out a new way to work in this environment, that we'll jump and do everything we can to get out of the way so that you can continue working as long as you can. We want to make sure there's a couple big announcements that we want to make sure everybody here hears. All of this information is also updated on our business page of the brooklinecovid19.com. Just in the last day, this changes so quickly. At the state level, anybody that pays meals, room, or sales tax, those funds that would have been due in March, April, and May are now delayed and not due until June 20th. There are some regulations on that will be coming out before Friday, but the general idea is that it's for businesses with less than $150,000 of sales and meals tax, or businesses with less than $150,000 of rooms occupancy tax. Also yesterday at the federal level, there was an announcement that IRS, our regular April 15th taxes are delayed for at least 90 days, but the filing still needs to happen on time on April 15th. I'm sure we'll hear more announcements from our state and federal folks, so I'll just kind of leave that there for now. I wanted to make sure that everybody here knows about 3 working capital funds, emergency working capital funds, and unemployment assistance benefits that are available right now. These are available to small businesses and nonprofit organizations. The first 2 are. That's the Small Business Administration's Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. That's a federal program. Links to that are on our webpage, and that is open to all businesses now. Secondly, there's a Small Business Recovery Fund. That's at the state level. Again, that's also a loan program, and links to that are on our town page as well. Finally, I wanted to let everybody know that the third thing is that the state, and we're also hearing information from the federal level, there is and there will, we anticipate more expedited access as well as expanded benefits for unemployment assistance. Right now, there's a focus on getting that out to the workers that are being unemployed or furloughed, but we expect there's lots of conversation and advocacy about having those benefits help our business owners as well, for example, so that they don't get penalized for having a high number of layoffs in this unprecedented time. Finally, wanted to let you know what we're doing just kind of generally day to day. We are in regular communication with our SBA coordinator here in Boston, Norm. He's just great. We're also in daily contact or twice a day with our contact at the State Office of Business Development, our state legislators who are on here with us, as well as our colleagues from neighboring communities. There's a strong network of people just like us in most cities and towns throughout Massachusetts. We've been having brown bag lunches for years, comparing notes, seeing what other people are doing. And so we're keeping in contact with them, sharing information hourly with each other about what we're hearing, about suggestions that we're hearing from our business community, about pending legislation or ideas for legislation. A general theme that you'll probably hear in the next coming days and weeks is at the town level, us waiting for regulations to be loosened for us to act in new ways, but also all of us pushing our legislators and coming up with new ideas to change some of those regulations. So, for example, we have had an initial conversation with our assessors department, and they're beginning to speak with some landlords. The reason why is we know we have this emergency kind of funding and process for the people that are getting unemployed right now. We're trying to think about that, that next level of business owners. And we know that earlier this week, the local regulations around banks has been loosened. So this is that example where now banks are actually allowed to defer some loans and fees, whereas last week they weren't even allowed to, even if they wanted to. Banks are now, some of them have already announced, and I recommend that you call your bank to find out the details, and it's going to be changing quickly. But banks are now, some of them have started to, and some are considering waiving, allowing for loan payments to be deferred or waiving some certain fees. So that will be changing, but that's an example of a push and pull between they had to be allowed to do so, and now they're considering taking action. The other piece here, of course, is our landlords, our commercial real estate industry. Many of them that we know well in Brookline traditionally have been able to defer rent payments from individual store owners when a crisis has happened for that business. This is, of course, a completely different scenario where everybody's concerned about all of their businesses and the health of the commercial community as a whole. We don't know what's going to come in the days ahead, but we are starting to have conversation with landlords, banks, and commercial developers to understand how we and possibly legislation might work together so that the town taxes the property owners charge the rent, the businesses have the loan from the banks, the property owners have the loan from the banks. And that's a system that needs to be figured out quickly, because the small business community across the country is what's so important to keep going or to help rebound as fast as we can when we're back and fully operational. I'm going to stop there, except to say that to make sure everybody knows that the information continues to be posted on our town webpage, and also a reminder to follow us on social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram, because things are developing very rapidly. And we have resources. There's links to our resources page, but we're also pushing out very important news through social media. Meredith, is there anything else we need to go over right at this minute?
No, I think you covered all the highlights.
Ro?
Okay, so I've been advising folks to submit questions using the Q&A icon. Again, that's at the bottom of your screen if you can do that. I do see some commentary and a question from Emily Eisenberg. Emily, what I'm going to do here is I am now promoting you to be a panelist, so we'll be able to see you if you'd like to ask your question. That should be happening. There you go. You're welcome to turn on your camera if you'd like, and we can certainly hear you. So feel free to do that. Emily, you with us? For others, please do submit your questions using the Q&A function. Emily says her audio cut out. Let me see if I can help here. One second. Well, all right. I do see the question that was listed from Emily earlier was, some businesses are paying the property taxes of Brookline. Are there any plans related to that? Cara? Make sure to unmute yourself, please, too.
Yep. So that's exactly the type of thing that we're starting to have a conversation with both, again, our assessor's office, the landlords, the banks, and As it stands right now, even if the assessor's office, if the town select board wanted to change the way that we collect property taxes, we would not be allowed to do it any way differently. If properties have vacancies now in the coming weeks or months, or there's permanent vacancies, that would not show up in property tax bills until July of 2021. So that's not a helpful incentive for any action being taken right now. And so that's the kind of conversation that we're having. That was given an example where we need to work with those other groups and figure out where we could loosen regulation, if that makes sense, so that we can have more people keep money where possible right now.
Okay, I've got another question from Deep Blue. Is there any plan to financially help small businesses in Brookline, in parentheses, not loans?
Yes, we've heard many small businesses say that getting a loan isn't attractive to them, that what they need is direct cash. We are hearing that there could be that kind of assistance coming from the federal level. I'm not aware of any specific programs yet. I do encourage people to consider applying for and filling out all of the long paperwork for the SBA loan, because much of that paperwork would most likely be used as other programs or opportunities open up. And so although there's nothing in writing, I would encourage you to consider starting that paperwork for the SBA loan, because at the very least, you'll need that same information to document business loss for any program that does open up.
Okay, I do see another one. Question is, I'm in the process of renovating a restaurant on Harvard Street. We plan to open in April, but now the inspection works are suspended. When will the normal work start? Will all the emergency recovery programs apply to new businesses as well? Thank you.
Raul, are those two separate questions? Can you
basically, the question is, this person's in process of renovating a restaurant on Harvard Street. It's not yet open. They plan it to open in April, but inspections have been halted. And their question is, when will the normal work, the inspections, things like that begin again? Will all the emergency recovery program, and so separately, there is two questions, yes. Will all the emergency recovery programs apply to new businesses as well as those that are already open?
Yes, what I would do is recommend that group contact us directly. Our emails are on the town page, so we can help you better. If you are a business in existence, in other words, if you have an LLC or are doing business as even somewhere else in the state and just aren't open at this location, then you would be able to apply to those programs. But I think the best thing is for you to call us directly so we can walk you through that. I don't know when the inspections will be back up. That's largely driven by what happens with the virus in the next couple of days, as well as our health commissioner.
Okay. We have another question from Jen. There's two questions. One is, should we try to hold out on our rent until we hear one way or the other, April 1st dues? And then question two is, the Mass SBA loan is only available to profitable businesses as of March 20th. Should we still fill it out?
With the first question, Jen, definitely talk to your landlord if you haven't already, or contact us. I believe we'll be trying to reach out to your landlord specifically anyways, but do try to have that conversation or start that conversation. I can't advise you what's the best thing to do in your case. I don't know, the personality of your landlord well and how forgiving they would be. So I can't give you that advice, but why don't you call us offline and we can talk about some strategies and having those initial conversations with your landlord specifically. And the second question, Raul, about
the second question was, the Mass SBA loan is only available to profitable businesses as of March 20th. Should we still fill it out?
Yes, I believe you should still fill it out again, because if you can show that there was income last year and there is not now over the same months, that difference of income will still be helpful if other programs open up.
Okay. We have another question from Roxy. What indicators are guiding the town on how long social distancing measures will be in effect? Our plans change drastically if we are planning for a month, 3 months, 6 months, etc. Though we could host shows for under 50, and Roxy is over at the Puppet Show Playhouse. Though we could host shows for under 50 or certain activities for 25 or 10, most of that is not economically feasible. Most of our spring business is with schools, and it seems like regulations will prohibit field trips, visits, etc. I suppose I can take this one. This is one of those things that is uncertain. The orders right now are in place at least through the first week of April. Here's something that's important to understand, that there are 3 different levels of restrictions on this. There's the federal level, the state level, and then of course our local level. We are guided first and foremost by health concerns, and what we're hearing from folks in the public health field, from our very own health director, and other information that's coming out of the CDC. That and that alone is going to guide our decisions moving forward. So at this point, it's impossible to tell when we expect to be open, again for business as usual, or whether or not those restrictions will be lifted from 10 and higher. So that is something that we just don't know yet. What we promise to do is to communicate. And as things change, again, you'll hear the governor speaking about this. You'll hear folks from the White House speaking about this, and you'll hear us at the local level updating you regularly. I do once again want to make sure that to direct you to our website, which is brooklinecovid19.com. So I see we have some more questions here. I'm going to take just one break for a moment. We do have our Congressman, Joe Kennedy, I believe, who's joined us. I mean, I see Joe Kennedy. Doesn't look like Joe Kennedy, but I see he's there at the office. So if Joe's ready to get on screen, we'd love to see him. Now, you look great, but we'd love to see him on screen. I'm also unmuting, or if you can unmute yourself, actually, Joe, when you get on there. You're still muted, by the way, so if you can unmute, should be able to do that.
How about now?
There you go.
Perfect. All right, he'll be right in.
Okay, great. Would you like us to take another question in the meantime?
Sure.
Raul, I'm just going to add on really quick about Roxy, and I know she's individually very much in touch with the Mass Cultural Council, but later on this afternoon at 3 p.m., Mass Cultural Council is doing a webinar with best advice on how to manage, especially our nonprofits arts organizations during this crisis. A lot of their ability and their unemployment works differently from for-profits, and so I strongly encourage any arts groups to jump on that webinar this afternoon at 3 p.m. with the Mass Cultural Council.
Great, thank you, Cara. Congressman Kennedy, I thank you for taking the time to be here with us. For those that are listening in, I reached out to the Congressman yesterday and asked us if he'd be willing to join us, and he responded right away with a yes. So glad you're here. A lot of folks on the call are small business owners or employees or now former employees of small businesses. And they've been hearing a lot about bills that are being passed, that are maybe being proposed over in DC. We're hoping that you can help us get the lay of the land for everything that's going on there in DC. And I'll just start by saying thanks for being with us, and I hope that you and your family are well.
Raul, thanks, and thanks for the opportunity. Everybody can hear me okay? I hope, yeah.
Yep.
So thanks for reaching out, appreciate it. And to all of everybody, I hope you guys are hanging in there, staying healthy as well. We're doing fine. 2 little kids trapped in the house, so it's a bit of a bomb every morning, but other than that, doing fine. So with regards to kind of where things are and where things are going, the House is in recess this week, but I'm staying in very close contact with our leadership as the various rescue packages take shape. I think I'll give you a brief overview of the 2 that have been passed and then kind of the context of the 3rd, with the caveat that I just have to say, like with everything else here these days, it is extremely fast moving and changing literally by every couple hours. So I'll give you the latest update that I have. But I do expect that this will take shape over the course of the next, certainly the workday today into the night, and then something far more concrete tomorrow. Ms. McConnell has indicated that his hope is that the Senate will stay in until this next bill is passed. And I expect that will be sometime, whether it's tomorrow, given that I don't think it's wholly taken shape yet, but it might be tomorrow, it might be the weekend. We are expected to go back down to Washington on Tuesday. I say expected, I can get more into that in a second, but I from my interactions with colleagues over the course of the past couple of days, there is an extraordinary sense of urgency. People understand that we need to get this done, and it needs to be done immediately so that funds can get injected out into our communities. People can't wait 3 or 4 weeks to get some of this relief. So there is I think I can say a preference to act fast rather than to try to get every detail perfect, given that speed and time is of the essence here. So no one wants to do anything stupid or rush it through, but we do need to make sure that trying to delay this for a couple of days to get every detail right is probably counterproductive at this point. So where we are at the moment, the first 2 packages, I think you all are aware of some initial funding, $8.3 billion that went out for community health centers, initial economic relief, some modifications to for telehealth, Medicare, and we're pushing pretty hard on Medicaid too. But some initial packages there to try to increase supplies of masks, personal protective equipment, some of the other stuff that you've heard an awful lot of. And I can get into that. Some of that got delayed, kind of unspeakably delayed from some companies that were looking for a sweetener in the package. But that we passed a couple weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago. The latest bill that the Senate passed last night and the president signed, I believe, signed into law last night or will do early this morning, was the bill that you'd heard a fair amount of on the paid leave pieces. So there was 5 big components of that. The first was guaranteeing that all of the testing for the virus is going to be free of charge for anybody, period. And I think really important here, no matter who you are in this country today, you do not have to pay for a test. We've got another issue about making sure you can get a test, but you do not have to pay for a test. No public charge, no question of immigration status, nothing. You're here, you get access, you will get a test, and you will get it for free, okay? You will get a test for free if you can get a test. Now we got to make sure that you can get a test. That's for free. The second was the paid leave pieces. That was fought by the administration, pushed back on by the administration. We need to continue to extend those provisions, but it was a significant expansion on paid leave and paid family leave, paid sick days. So that was good. We still need to do more. It was an increase for Medicaid, understanding that Medicaid and Medicaid hospitals, community health centers are going to take a huge hit to this. So to provide some initial additional funding there, although there's going to have to be an awful lot more. In my conversations with our hospitals over the course of the past couple of days, they have made that case clear. It's now starting to take root in Washington as well. Next piece was around enhanced unemployment insurance, understanding that there was going to be people that were going to get laid off during this, and we needed to do more in order to cover those needs. So that was the basics of the second bill that was just signed into law. The context of this next bill is a much broader package. So that last one was about, hard to say exactly given the unemployment pieces, and some of this is going to be based on need. But roughly, I think the estimates were about $100 billion. This next one is on the order somewhere in the neighborhood, because the detail's still moving, of $1 trillion. And that comes down to a couple of different components. One, direct cash payments. So the details on here are moving. This started off as a proposal from actually some progressive Democrats, and then a couple of Republicans took it up. You've seen the initial numbers were about $1,000 total. You've now seen, I came out with one that was far more generous than that, but you've seen the latest on this is $2,000, $1,000 immediately and $1,000 a month later. I still don't think that's enough, so we're trying to push that number up. But immediate cash injection to individuals to make sure that you can cover whatever you need to cover: credit card bill, rent, car payment, whatever else, just money in the system. So that's one big piece to it. Another big piece is assistance to small businesses to ensure that they have the ability to gain access to capital, to gain access to liquidity, to gain access to low interest or no interest loans. Make sure that they are able to stay afloat during this period, understanding if we give people the flexibility, workers and families the flexibility and the confidence to know that if you stay home, you are not going to face an economic devastation. That is like the big deal at the moment. This started as a public health crisis. It's now moving into an economic crisis because our public health system was not able to weather this. And the only thing, the best thing we can do is tell people, hey, stay back home and socially distance. That does mean the federal government's got to step up and backfill here. That's been the big effort. So in a lot of these conversations. So individual cash payments, support for small businesses, and then you're getting into that question of kind of the sectoral assistance, the sector by sector, quote unquote, bailouts. Airlines, without question, need assistance. Hospitality industry, hotels are going to need assistance. As is now not the biggest industry for us here in Massachusetts, but huge for other parts of the country, as you can imagine. Cruise lines need assistance. There's a bit of a a bit of a pushback on the cruise industry. As some of you will probably know, a lot of those companies are flagged overseas. They're flagged to avoid U.S. taxes. They're not, they don't necessarily have a huge amount of U.S. citizens that work in the industry, but they do support an awful lot of jobs around it. In cities in Florida, that industry supports vibrant hotels, small businesses, restaurants, et cetera. So there's probably going to need to be some assistance there. I don't have the details as exactly what that looks like at the moment, but that's an area of focus. And then, so that's kind of the context of the big pieces at the moment. There's going to, I think, needs to be additional support for hospitals, whether that ends up being done through Medicare and Medicaid, or whether that ends up being additional supports. We're kind of in the context of making that of that debate at the moment. But that package, again, roughly $1 trillion, hopefully signed into law over the course of passed and signed into law over the course, certainly by the next week. That would be my hope. Last thing I'll say, Raul, I give you a little bit of I can't tell you exactly on timing or exact substance. Obviously, again, the details of this getting worked out as we speak. The primary focus of the negotiation at the moment is in the Senate. It's Mitch McConnell trying to consolidate support from the Republican caucus around their ideas, and then engaging with Senator Schumer. They need to get to 60 votes in the Senate, so Senator Schumer has significant leverage here. There's also, I think, two, but at least one Republican that is senator that's in quarantine, and that starts to become an issue when you start to get to the point of counting votes about how you get there. That bill then needs to also pass the House. So Speaker Pelosi has considerable leverage there to make sure that a Democratic caucus is able to carry it. So that negotiation is largely between the administration, Senator Schumer, Senator McConnell, and Speaker Pelosi as to what it's going to take in order to get some package done through the House and the Senate quickly. The last kind of caveat here, some of you might have seen, two of our colleagues, my House colleagues, were diagnosed with the virus yesterday. We were in Washington for 6 straight days. You're all on the House floor multiple times, shaking hands, and so I think sentiment is that there's probably a number of other members of Congress that are going to be diagnosed in the coming days. We also have a number of colleagues of ours that are in that vulnerable population and that have underlying health risks. So some question as to exactly when we go back down and who gets on that plane, which has to be another consideration, because I think for some folks, particularly if they're sick, they can't. So we'll see about that. There's a push at the moment for some sort of accommodation for electronic voting, so that we can do this by distance, but that's never happened before in American history. So there's a couple additional complications there that we have to work our way through. So that's where it stands. Happy to take any questions or suggestions that you guys got. Raul, thanks.
Absolutely. I want to first, here's what we'll have on deck. First, see if Cara, our Economic Development Director, has any questions. Then State Rep Tommy Vitolo has a question. And we've got one other question in the box right now. So let's start with Cara first. And be sure to unmute yourself before you speak.
Thank you, Raul. My question is there any talk at the federal level about funding that's going to directly come to business owners that are in the works? That's not a loan, not a loan, but just cash help.
So I haven't seen. So Cara, I think everything on the is on the table at this point, right? I haven't seen exactly whether that would be what the context of that small business assistance is going to be. What they're saying is in the order of kind of $200 to $300 billion, at least again as an initial piece that's normally done through the SBA. But I don't think I've seen no details as yet as to whether how that is our as to what that process would look like, how quickly that if you give SBA that amount of money. What we've also seen is there's going to be a deluge of people asking for it. And one of the challenges we've even seen with these tests is after we've gotten more tests available, you don't have people and you don't have the labs to be able to process the volume of tests. So you need to make sure that SBA can also process the requests that are coming in a sufficient manner so that the money ends up getting back out so you don't get another backlog. And I think all of that is trying to get negotiated and thought through literally as we speak. I do think that small businesses obviously are in a different category than large industry, where airlines are looking for $50 billion. There's a legacy here after 2008 of saying, hey, if taxpayers are going to come in and step in and float the industry, then there's going to be some conditions put in place here. Small businesses are in a very different category and don't have the flexibility to say, hey, we're going to charge a big interest or whatever else. And I think there's a widespread recognition, at least from my perspective, that we need to make sure that these businesses stay afloat, because if they do, it's going to keep an awful lot of employees afloat and keep that anxiety down. Last thing I'd say on it, Cara, as I tried to say earlier, this is a public health crisis that's now turning into a financial one. If our public health system fails, essentially, to be able to get in front of this, and if we're basically saying, hey, you got to stay home, and that's the proper healthcare intervention, that wasn't a crisis in our financial system. It could become one. Our financial system could crater, but we're doing it because our government has said this is what we have to do to keep people healthy. It does mean that the government, I think, from my mind, has to come in and then say, hey, let's keep those businesses as whole as we can make them. And that is where, again, that direct cash assistance, I think, can also be extremely helpful for those individuals to be able to make ends meet and provide some flexibility where businesses don't feel the need and don't have to lay all those folks off. But 100%, that's a big focus going forward.
Cara, anything else? You good? Okay. Tommy.
Good morning. Thank you, Congressman Kennedy, for being here. My question relates to the ability of folks who live in, frankly, more expensive areas of the country to continue to support their businesses at the same rate that folks elsewhere can. If we do have, as former presidential candidate Yang proposed, as now former governor of Massachusetts Mitt Romney has proposed, if we're going to send checks to folks, is there no recognition for the fact that, for example, the cost of living in Boston is twice that of mortgage payments are higher, groceries are higher? Why shouldn't the checks to those parts of the country also be higher so that folks can essentially acquire the same level of service with that check from the government?
So, Tommy, it's a great point, and I obviously don't disagree with the sentiment or the statistics. I also think that this is where the need for speed ends up being kind of overwhelming the fierce political battle that we would end up fighting through. Look, as a member of Congress, every member of Congress gets paid the exact same whether you live in Manhattan or rural Oklahoma.
It's true for
Right.
state
And
reps
so-
too.
There you go, right? So that that disparity between cost of living, right, is a very different one in very various parts of the country. I wholeheartedly agree that the additional assistance, even if you went with my plan, $2,000 today, $2,000 in a month is helpful. It's much more helpful if you happen to live in Idaho than if you live in Cambridge, right, or South Boston, or Newton, Brookline. That being said, if we're going to try to kind of delineate that out with some sort of cost of living adjustment, that is going to be a political fight, right? You're also going to then get into that, well, what about, there's parts of the country that haven't seen the impact that we're seeing in greater Boston yet. There's parts of the country that haven't seen that might not see it, right? Parts of rural America might not be hit as badly by this because they're already socially distanced. So do we want to accommodate for some model that says, hey, these folks aren't going to need it, these folks do, off of some projection now versus later? I think if we're trying to get something done and out, then the most politically palatable way to do it is just say, hey, look, everybody gets literally something, the same thing or something similar. We can means test that a bit. You've seen different ideas come out there. And again, this is working through the Senate with people making over $1 million. There's other ways to do that, which says, hey, just give the money out. And the way issue that we were exploring, give the money out to everybody, and you can claw it back the next tax system or the next tax period if you need to. But if you're just looking for stimulus ability, just get the money out. It's easier to administer to just say everybody gets it. And then if you have a year to try to say, hey, maybe you actually didn't need it, then let's claw that back at the back end. So there's a bunch of different ideas on that table. I do think that while the concern that you raise is absolutely correct, I think the politics here and the urgency of the moment is one that's probably going to mean that we just give it all to everybody. Understanding that doesn't mean equal benefit, but imperfect system. Yeah.
So Joe, I know you've got things to do, but let me just see if I can get a couple quick questions in from the box here. One, I imagine this is from Nick, and maybe your office can help here. Nick says, Joe, we have clients stuck in Roatan as the airlines have canceled all of their flights back. Is there anything we can do or a contact that we could reach out to get them back?
So Raul, send them over to my office. We are getting pinged by people literally all over the world. Roatan, I think Honduras, what you just said. Family reached out to this morning from Peru. We've been back and forth with the State Department a bunch on a couple of families that are in Morocco. Essentially, countries around the world close their borders, and American citizens are trapped. And they're trying to get home. Airlines aren't moving, and countries won't let them out. And so essentially the only way to get folks out is diplomatic flights and extraction flights from every country in the world. And that's if those American citizens can get to some of those cities. Roatan, if that's where I heard you right, is an island off of Honduras, right? So we are pushing on state. It is ultimately states' ability and authority there to decide how they're going to do that, when they're going to do that, and who they're going to do that for. We're pushing very hard, but send them over to our office. We're getting dozens of these requests, as you can imagine. And just if any of you have heard similar stories or haven't, send them to our office. It's terrible, right? Absolutely terrible. And I wish I had a better answer for you other than we'll keep pushing and pounding on the State Department, but State Department has not been all that quick to move on this as yet.
Okay, great. Can someone from your office that may be online right now, I know Andrew's there with you, sort of message Nick some contact information? Is that possible?
Yeah, we can. I'm looking at Andrew. He apparently knows how to do that.
Okay, he knows how to do that. I'll make sure we do that. Can I ask you one question? I mentioned yesterday when we spoke, folks who are undocumented, who, by the way, make up a lot. They're the a lot of the folks that prepare our food and care for us in many different ways. I'm certainly concerned that that those folks won't be getting these stimulus checks, that they won't be able to apply for the unemployment insurance, that essentially what we've done to date won't necessarily support them. Are there any other ways that we can get support to undocumented people in America?
So, Raul, a great question and a hard answer from a representative from a federal government, right? We have been pushing really hard on a couple of levels. One, obviously, when it comes to the provision of healthcare, and this is where we have made some progress, right? If you are trying to stop the spread of a pandemic, guess what? That disease affects you whether you're a Democrat, Republican, rich or poor, and doesn't care if you got a green card or a natural born citizen or anything else. It's going to get you. And if it's going to get you, it means that, and if we want to get it, you can't let this fester in any community. This is a big challenge, as you well know, in a homeless community as well, right? You're seeing a homeless population that won't go into shelters anymore because they're concerned if it gets in there, it's going to spread like wildfire, and that's not wrong. So how do you then provide services and access to services for folks that under federal law and with this president and this Senate have been very clear about not making some of those accommodations? How do we make some of those accommodations? So on the healthcare side, we pushed very hard on just the nature of a pandemic and trying to say, if you are serious about actually ending it, you have to provide access to care across the board, period, no questions asked. And we were effectively making that case with regards to access to testing and testing, right? No costs, no questions. We are trying to backfill Medicaid. We already bumped it up a bit. I've got proposals, a bunch of others do too, to try to keep increasing that federal match on Medicaid to provide additional resources and flexibility to community health centers, which is where a number of those folks in those frontline communities are going to go, so that they have the ability to care for people without necessarily getting that reimbursement. And to that extent, that plushing up over here enables other funds to be used over there. So we're going to keep pushing very hard. We've got a pretty good argument on the healthcare side of things to say, hey, if you want to target the pandemic, this is what you need to do from a public health perspective. When it comes to the actual kind of affirmative provision of funds, right? Taxpayer funds, direct cash transfers, some of these other benefits, that gets obviously an awful lot harder. I will double check so that the way that those have been plans have been looked at is because the IRS already has, if you pay taxes, we know who you are, we know your bank account, we know your address, we can get you a check pretty darn quickly and get that out to you. If you haven't paid taxes, that's a much smaller cycle or subset, but we can still find ways of tracking some folks down, but that still requires some sort of federal identification, right? For those others, the public charge actually only applies to people, I believe, that are receiving benefits that could last for over a year. That's not what a lot of these programs are targeted to. We still got to figure out, so while the public charge doesn't apply, that doesn't necessarily mean that they would still be eligible for some of these benefits. So we'll keep pushing on it. I know that this is an issue for a number of our colleagues, and we're trying to figure out the best ways that we can not just find those resources, but then target them to individuals and that we know who those individuals are. And obviously, Raul, the last part on that makes it even more scary if you're going to make these people known to federal government, and then you've got ICE, right, on the back end. And so good to see, you probably saw those headlines that ICE is restricting, has stepped way back on arrests, thank God. But you still then have this question of, hey, if we try to target these programs to some folks at some point in that, on that process of immigration status, if you get them into that system, is this going to be used to their detriment later? And we're trying to work our way through that. And I wish I had a better answer for you, but it's on the radar and we're trying to fight for it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I want folks to know for sure that there's actually a fund in Brookline. The Brookline Community Foundation has the Safety Net Fund. This is actually administered through the Brookline Center. So you can either reach out to the Brookline Community Foundation or the Brookline Center. And what they provide is any person or families that are in need, especially during this time, that this fund exists even before this crisis, but especially is needed during this crisis, provides rental assistance, utility assistance, things of that nature. And they provide that support regardless of documentation status for Brookline residents. If you do have employees that are not Brookline residents, you can still reach out to them and they will connect you to a local service provider in the community in which they reside. So please do reach out, and I've confirmed that they have assistance in multiple languages, including Spanish and Russian, and they think Mandarin, and potentially other languages. So please do reach out to them. Joe, thank you for being with us. Any last words or anything else you want to share with us before you go?
No, the only thing I'd say, everybody, is so one, keep in touch. You all have my email. I think that thing went out right. But anything else that comes in, just reach out. It has been a bit of a hectic, mad scramble every day here because people are in desperate need, and we're trying to make sure that there are federal responses there. But reach out. We'll do everything we can for anybody, no matter what that is. And obviously, just stay healthy, stay safe. We're going to get through this, I think, as we all know, but we'll get through it far easier if people don't get this thing to begin with. And it's going to be much less stress on our system. And I will tell you, if you're real quick, because I got another thing I got to jump to. I don't know how to unmute you.
Yeah, unmute yourself, Talia.
Okay.
Nope, still not yet. Bottom left of you.
You're muted by host. Okay, there we go. Hi, thanks so much. I just have a really quick question that has come up with a couple of my employees who I've had to lay off. A couple of them have immigration. They are here legally and they're documented, but their immigration court hearings are scheduled for this spring. And so as I've had to lay off these employees, and I've explained to them about filing for unemployment, they have brought up very real concerns and nervousness, saying that they've been advised that, as they go into an immigration court hearing, their lawyers or their advisors are saying, you don't want to go into this hearing having applied for food stamps, having applied for benefits, et cetera. Nobody wants to see that in a court hearing. So they are feeling nervous about actually applying for unemployment, even though I've had to lay them off. And they are documented right now. Is there any assurance I can give those employees that, especially during this time, that isn't going to mark badly for them when they have a court hearing, say, scheduled for June?
So, Talia, that's a great question. Let me check and let me see if we can put some accommodation in this package, because we just passed the second round of enhanced unemployment insurance, but there might be something we can do in there. There's another conversation that's coming about forbearance, so that if you've seen this happen in Boston housing court is essentially closed aside from emergency evictions. There is a number of different proposals out there just to say, hey, stop, you can't be evicted, you're not going to get hit if you don't make a payment, car loan, mortgage, whatever else, it's not going to go on your credit report. Give people essentially a couple months to get back their feet underneath you. There might be something there we can do for saying, hey, if you've lost your job in the past, X period of days, weeks, months, don't take that against, don't hold that against people. So let me look into that. I don't have a good answer for you yet, but it's a great point. And let me get back to you. You've got my email too, so follow up. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Raul, thanks. Keep in touch. All right. Thanks everybody. Good luck. Stay healthy.
You too.
You too.
All right, folks, let's continue on. Obviously with thank you to the Congressman for providing us information on the federal response. I see Andrew is going to stick with us on Joe's line and continue to take notes. And so if there's anything else that you'd like him to respond to in the future, please do let us know. I want to get back to some of the questions that you have. And I see Cara still with us and ready to go. And let me take some of the technical questions. So one was essentially, and this is from Liz. I think we heard, I have a talented full-time employee on an O visa. If I can't employ her full-time in the next few months, she is in danger of being deported back to Venezuela. We talked about some of this just now. I don't want to have to choose between my studio space and my employee. And here's the question. What is your sense of recovery in the coming months? And have you considered pulling together a business advisory team with some legal expertise? So I think I answered the question about what the sense of recovery was in the coming months. Cara, this other question, have you considered pulling together a business advisory team with some legal expertise? Do we have that expertise already? Is that something that we need to develop? What do you think?
I think it's something that we should develop further, Raul. You already have this committee in place, which is a great start. I think right now, what we need in addition to resources that could be used by any business of legal advice is also HR advice. Yesterday, the Newton Needham Chamber held an excellent seminar on urgent issues related to human resources and legal concerns. There was also another webinar that someone else mentioned in the comments about force majeure and what that means in contracts. And many of our catering folks and other people need to know what that means and what assurances they do or don't have. A third concept is business interruption insurance. We're hearing from, I haven't heard otherwise, but this is not a fact, that it is those that have business interruption insurance most likely will not be covered from COVID. So those are kind of large topics that I think what we should do, Raul, is there's several HR and business consultants, some of who rent space in Village Works, that I think we could ask to help us get involved, or perhaps even use some town resources to get that expertise online.
Fantastic. Thank you. So another question is, any idea whether business loss provisions of business, you may have answered this just now, but business loss provisions of business insurance policies might cover business losses? That's too technical for me to even understand, but
what we're hearing from several businesses in Brookline is that they have called their insurance company and it would not be covered. It's best for people to confirm that directly with their own insurance company. But we are hearing that as a general trend in some larger information sessions as well.
Okay. Another one. Someone had sent a note, this is Jerry, to you and Mel, about payment of property taxes in a monthly fashion versus all at once. And Jerry says, as a small landlord, I don't expect any income from my tenant in the foreseeable future. How about that?
Yes, Jerry is one of our stellar landlords in town, and thinks and does for the whole neighborhood, not just the bottom line of a real estate portfolio. Jerry, please send that email again. I have not seen that unless you sent it in the last half hour, and I can follow up with our assessor's office with that idea.
This is regarding FMLA. Are the new FMLA rules, and I'm not sure if this was sent directly for you or for the congressman while he was on, but are the new FMLA rules only for infected with corona and those caring for infected corona family members, not employees sent home because of businesses shut down? Is that correct?
There was some information on this in yesterday's information. Let us get back to you on that. If you can just, Meredith, figure out who it is that's asking this, and then we'll follow up with them directly, and then we can post the FAQ on the town website.
All right. Jen, thanks for that question. All right, so here's another good one, and this is important for all of us, is how can we promote the businesses that are still open? And this is from Dr. Flores. And like myself, a chiropractic office. How can we help promote the businesses that are still open?
So I'd like to know what's most helpful for the businesses to do. I'm sure some of you know there's been multiple people trying to set up, Google Docs or other things on social media to have Brookline businesses self-report in what their update is or how people can help. If this group wants, we could link to that Google sheet that someone else has already set up and a couple dozen businesses are already on. If there's other ideas, I'm all ears. Of course, anything that goes up needs to be updated. So I would prefer something like the Google sheet that's been done so that businesses can update that themselves directly.
Okay. Thanks, Cara.
Raul?
As more, just 1 second, as more questions may come in, this is a good time if any of our committee members, including some who are small business owners, would like to share anything. This would be a good time. Someone was just about to speak, though. Who was that?
Hi, it's Kathy from Brookline Interactive Group. I just want to put out an offer to business owners that are open. If you'd like to record information about your business hours and the fact that you're open, or any details about curbside pickup, anything, please contact info@brooklineinteractive.org, and we will get you your video recording up on the cable channels and share it out through Facebook and YouTube streaming as well. I also want to just let you know, Raul, there was a question that came in from Facebook that I wanted to make sure got answered. It's about the 1099 contractors. I do see something in the text here, but if you could repeat it, the person is only listening on Facebook Live and would love it if you could answer that question from Lori.
Okay, I don't have the question. If you can go for it, that'd be great.
Sure. She's saying, will there be changes so self-employed 1099 residents can receive unemployment benefits? And that's from Lori on Facebook.
And I think Meredith has the answer directly for that one.
Yes. So I posted something in the comments section with the link to the state website. It sounds like in order to provide unemployment benefits for 1099 residents, there'd have to be action at the federal level. So they're just awaiting updates on that.
Great. I'll share that with her on Facebook, and I'm sure she's heard it as well. Thank you.
Great. From any of our committee members, any questions or anything to share? David, how about you? I know you're doing something pretty innovative with your business, Eureka Puzzles. Unmute yourself, please. Bottom left of your screen. There you go.
Thanks, Raul. And I got to tell you, the conference itself has been so far very informative, and I think we're all just waiting to hear what happens at the federal level and how that's going to trickle down. I know we're struggling here to make sure that we're able to keep customers safe when they come into the store. We're still open. We've moved all of our inventory around to highlight the things people are looking for. We've just launched a new delivery service. I'm going to be sending details about that out to our members later on this morning. So this way we can extend that delivery service to everybody who's interested in the Coolidge Corner area. And this is something where people could then get online, order online, and then have their package delivered directly to them without having to leave their homes.
And I understand you just got a new shipment of 500 puzzles.
We got 500 puzzles in already. We were cleaned out over the weekend. We probably have another 400 or 500 on the way in, coming in over the next few days.
Great. Placing my order shortly. Any others from the committee that have something to share or even a question to ask? Melissa, I see you. Just unmute yourself and go for it.
Hi. Sorry if there's might be some screaming and crying in the background. This is live right now. My question was about how people are going to deal with labor issues, sort of short, medium, long term. I just want to know, we're not at a point right now where we're needing to lay people off, but I'd like to know how to acquire the information I would need about my relative options as far as reducing staffing time, furloughs or layoffs, what the impact is on my business. I know that's a little unusual right now. There might be different programs in place, and what the impact is on my employees, which is also part of the decision. So just how to acquire that most up-to-date information. What are the resources I should be looking at for that?
Meredith or Cara?
So I'll jump in. I think this echoes back, Raul, to this idea that's emerging that we should probably either invite and or pay for services for a consultant to do maybe even next week's webinar that's focused on HR and legal expertise. I think we could have someone that could, in small groups, answer these questions that many businesses are having, and I'd rather that those solutions come directly from those experts. So we'll get on that and try to set something up as soon as we can.
Makes sense. Debbie, were you about to say something as well? Just unmute yourself before you do. There you go.
Hi, Raul. This has been really helpful. Thank you. This has been terrific. So at the Chamber, we're trying very hard to get the word out about what is still happening in the business community so people can remain aware and support the businesses that are up and running. If we could all please encourage each other and businesses that are listening to please let us know at the Chamber. You can get in touch with me at debbie@brooklinechamber.com to keep us informed about what you're doing, like David's initiative that's so creative and worthwhile. That would be helpful. For example, we learned recently that at Goddard House, visitors aren't allowed to come in. And so there's some arts organizations in town who immediately stepped up, and they've got some interesting activities and entertainment online for the people who live there. So if we can make some connections for people, as well as encouraging people to support the business community, we would like to do that.
Fantastic. So I know that State Representative Tommy Vitolo needs to step away soon for yet another meeting, because these are the times that we're in right now. He's got some updates at the state level. We'd love to hear from you. And then I know there's one more question in the box. We'll make sure we get to that before we close out. But we've got some time to go. So Tommy, go take it away.
Thank you, Select Board Member Fernandez. I do have a few updates. Some of it has been touched on before. None of what I am about to say is complete with details. And so if it applies to you or think it might, the intention is not for you to take what I say and go take an immediate action, but rather to follow through with the appropriate state agency and confirm the details and make sure that it makes sense for you and your decision. And again, things are changing quite quickly. As you know or may know, the governor had a press conference yesterday and released some information. I do want to say that the governor and Speaker DeLeo and Senate President Spilka have done an outstanding job working together to figure out what the governor can do or what he needs legislative action on. And we, the legislature, have been moving very quickly to make the changes necessary. So I want to start with unemployment. Historically, there's a 1-week waiting period. That has been waived. The legislature passed and the governor signed legislation to waive that waiting period. And so if you have employees and you're trying to figure out what the best thing to do is, I urge you to really look into laying them off. Because if the option is staying on the books and not working any hours or collecting unemployment, it may make sense for everyone. Traditionally, there are requirements to attend seminars for those who are unemployed. Those have been suspended. There are extensions for payment available, and all appeals are now by telephone. There are several other changes as well. And so I encourage you to check that out and really work with your employees to determine what makes the most sense there. There is, as mentioned, a $10 million small business loan program for up to $75,000 per applicant. It also applies to nonprofits. Again, not everything here is going to make sense for everybody. The idea is to try to put as many tools out there as we can quickly. And that's one within a structure that already existed, so it was easy to create. The governor announced yesterday that for businesses who paid under $150,000 last year in lodging and meals taxes, which corresponds with $2.4 million in revenue, the payments that would typically be due tomorrow, in fact, are not due until late June. So the March, April, and May payments will be due in June with no interest and no penalties. And I want to put a shout out to, is it Deborah Benson from Tabera de Haro, who actually proposed that to me a week ago. I brought it up with leadership. Several other reps, I'm sure, did the same. It's a great idea, and it's one that we were able to do. Again, that is not forgiving the tax payment. It is allowing a later payment. And for those who need cash right now, it may be useful. The governor also mentioned yesterday daycare closures by the end of the day, March 23rd. That's the end of the day, Monday. There will be arrangements made for medical personnel and first responders. And so there will be some daycares, I think, that will still be open. I do not know how that determination will be made, but for the daycare businesses in Brookline, it may be something to reach out to the governor's office and look into, see if there's an opportunity there. I did file HB 4948 2 days ago, and if passed, it would give mayors and select boards more authority to modify business practices up to and including closure during this state of emergency only. This is a tough pill to swallow, and we're talking about economic stimulus, and at some point that's going to be necessary. But the fact of the matter is, every single interaction between people who are closer than 6 feet together is a public health danger. And we really need to do absolutely everything we can to eliminate those interactions. And I recognize that this is just not a happy thing to say, but it is our reality. And so to the extent that there are further restrictions, the bill I filed would give cities and towns the authority to do it. There was a conversation yesterday or the day before with the select board about how it is that you can cut someone's hair from 6 feet away. And it's a fair question. And so those are the updates from the state level. The best thing to do in general is to reach out to the agency to get specific information. I can try to help with that if you're having trouble, but recognize that a specific agency and a business owner likely both know more about the details of that concern than I will. And so I am happy to help if there's any way I can. 617-872-8921 is my telephone number. Call me anytime. I know how to turn the ringer off for the 6 hours of sleep I get. Please reach out to me. You can also reach out by email at tommy.vitolo at mahouse.gov. Here's the spelling. tommy.vitolo at mahouse.gov. But really, telephone is probably best, 617-872-8921. As you know, everything's evolving quickly. I don't know that we'll have more big state news this week, but we might. And I will continue to stay abreast and be helpful both to businesses and to town staff and elected officials any way I can. Thanks very much. And happy to take any questions if you have any specific questions about this.
Well, I don't know if there are specific questions here for you just now. We do have other questions, but if you got to go, I think folks know how to reach you now. It's thank you for being Representative Vitolo so accessible for this community. It's especially important during these times. So being able to call the representative directly is a huge bonus for us here in Brookline. So hope they'll take you up on it.
Thanks very much. I do have to go. Thank you, Select Board Member Fernandez and everyone else on the call.
Thanks, Tommy. Take care. All right, so we're going to keep this going just up until 10:30. So we got about 12 minutes to go. Let's see if we can get some answers to some more of these questions that are here. There's a question from Jen. It says, we use Grubhub for delivery, but many of our guests said they'd be more interested in delivery if our staff delivered. This would be a great way to employ staff who have had to lay off. What type of licensing do we need to do that, if any?
As far as I'm aware, there's no local licensing that's required.
Okay. All right, Jen, as far as we're concerned, you can go for it. Talia's got something to say. Unmute yourself, Talia. Yep.
Yeah, I just want I was, we're doing a lot of delivery as well, and we don't use Grubhub or anything, but I just want to tell other fellow business owners that to have that conversation with your staff, if you're going to use them, if you do not have the tax coverage to cover the liability coverage to cover their vehicles, then that is a liability. So for instance, a bunch of my staff said, who I laid off, said, I have a car, can I deliver? We decided to not make the $6,000 rider attachment to our tax, because obviously we're just bleeding cash right now, to add that tax, to add that insurance liability on. And so I had a very, very real conversation with folks who wanted to do that, saying, I will pay you by the hour to do that, but you're not going to be under our insurance. Your vehicle won't be under our insurance. So are you willing to accept that liability? And so otherwise, it's usually just business owners. Like I've personally been doing a lot of the deliveries for us because business owners can drive stuff on behalf of their business with their vehicles without an insurance rider and coverage. So obviously every business owner can do whatever they want, but I would just remind you that your insurance liability, if you're having employees deliver for you who normally aren't covered under that with their automobile, is going to be big if something were to happen, if they were driving and delivering on behalf of your business.
It's really important information. Thanks, Talia.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a couple more here. From Kaylin, this is related to childcare businesses. Unlike other businesses, childcare businesses have no income at all coming in as long as the restriction exists. Any suggestion for survival for the next month or so?
I think what I should do is get you in touch with our local daycare licensing person, Joyce. You may know her already, Joyce Davisack. But if you could send Meredith or I an email, we'll put you in touch with her. I'm sure she's got her finger on the pulse of any pending aid that's being talked about at the state level. And we'll get you that information and post it online as soon as we have it.
All right. Thanks for that question, Kaylin. From Lucia. People filed many different ways. Some said fired, some said moved on call. Looks like the right way, was reduced hours. So I'm having trouble filling out responses. This may be related to a certain form, I think.
Yep. Lucia, are you there? Can you unmute yourself?
Oh, let me see if I can. We'll have to get her. 1 second. Allowed to talk. You should be able to speak now.
Hello.
There you go.
Morning.
Go for it.
So on unemployment, I should have said that, sorry. I got so many different ways people filed. So it looked like the easiest and the correct way was when people filed lack of hours. That was very straightforward. Other people said they were fired, and it's really hard to fill out that form when that wasn't the case. Somebody said that they were moved to on-call, which they were not moved to on-call. And I'm having a lot of trouble filling that out for their sake and for my sake. I don't want to be penalized later to say I fired somebody without cause. I just don't know what the repercussions of these forms are that are incorrect. I don't think they could go change the form. And the questions really don't apply to the situation for those individuals.
Lucia, I think that from what I heard yesterday, I think that you're right, that for most businesses, the most flexible thing to do is to reduce hours for employees. But I want to make sure I'm giving the right information. And so I just don't feel 100% confident with that right now. But like I said before, this is a recurring theme that we clearly need more expertise on right away.
So I guess I just fill them out as best I can. And
I would recommend only filling out the ones that are saying reduced hours and asking the employees to file differently because they were not fired and they were not put on call.
do you think you can adjust a form? I'm not sure if you could go back and pick a new one. I did send, I saw on a different group, a very easy pictorial on how to file the unemployment, which I put on the chat part for people. It was exactly what staff should have done. So if staff are confused, I would send them that link. It was super easy to follow. So I could send them that link and ask them to follow that. I just don't know if you can delete a claim and do a new one.
I don't know that either. I think it's best though that you don't fill out something that says that they were fired. I think you could let the employee know, ask them to refile. And if you don't hear from them, I would say also for you to have someone get on the very long phone call or email to the office and explain why you're not filling out that form.
Okay.
Just to protect yourself.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll try to get better answers for you as soon as we can.
Okay. I want to take these last two questions and no more very quick answers, and then just a few words to close out. So related to this, I think, is Liz asked, I have another part-time employee whose hours I need to reduce. Is this where unemployment assistance would kick in?
So
yes.
And we have, we're going to look more into this so we can provide a completely accurate, better information. But there is a state program that's listed on under state resources in the link that I shared to Economic Development's website, where it is possible for employees to receive unemployment assistance if you're reducing their hours. So my guess is that the state is probably scrambling to expand that program, given that's the circumstance that a lot of people who are looking for unemployment assistance are in right now. But we can follow up with additional information as we learn more.
Yes, and I'll just add that anybody whose paycheck has been reduced by 30% is eligible for unemployment.
Very helpful. Very final question, and this is from Larry. It's a why question, which are always tough questions, but why is there no sales tax deferral for small businesses that have had to close?
So that might be a question because of Tommy's comments, but sales tax is included in the tax deferrals that Tommy was talking about and that we talked about earlier. So for the state, meals, room, and sales tax have been deferred for those that would have been due March, April, and May until June 20th.
Okay. So if folks have further questions between now and the next time we're able to gather in this way, if you can just remind us what the best way to reach you all, Cara, Meredith, is, that'd be helpful.
Meredith, do you want to jump in?
Sure. Sorry, I was typing something. So I can put, I've tried to put Cara in my emails in comments. I'll also put it here in the chat section. So feel free to reach out to us.
Fantastic.
And also, we're trying to get information out as soon as we can on our social media. So also feel free to follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
And Raul, before we close out, I would love to know from the businesses that are still on the call, if they have any preference or consolidated idea of the best way we could help get out the word of which businesses remain open in Brookline. Do you want us to link to that Google sheet that's on Facebook, or do businesses here have other preferences?
Debbie, do you have anything to say on that? Unmute, yeah.
Okay. Yes, I'd be happy to list all the open businesses, certainly on our website, and help get that out on social media. That's something, yeah, we can definitely do that.
Yeah. Does that include members of the chamber as well as non-members?
Everybody. These are unusual circumstances. Absolutely everybody. I think that it's the chamber's role to protect everybody right now.
Fantastic.
I would agree, as David from Eureka. People are going to look for information in different ways. Some of them will look on the chamber site. Many will look on the Brookline town site.
Right.
If you can either echo or list or link to that list from the town site, that would be great.
Yeah,
we'll also can put that together and link to it from the CCMA list as well. We can also possibly get it up on Patch and Tab and all the other avenues. Just let folks know who is still operating normally or who has reduced hours or other options.
That sounds great.
David, since you're my data person and logical thinking person, would you recommend just using the Google sheet that's still there rather than asking people to update information in two different places?
If we can, somebody has to maintain that Google sheet and keep it alphabetical, because last time I looked at it, it was kind of a mess.
Okay.
But aside from that, having one venue and then having many people linked to it is fine.
Okay, so maybe next step, Debbie, would be for us to get you in touch with the resident who has so wonderfully put on that Google sheet, and then the two of you can coordinate the best way to move forward.
That would be great. Thank you.
Great.
Raul,
Yes.
I just want to remind people that you can send us any information that you want up on the cable channels. We have 20,000 viewers in Brookline on cable, and we're also broadcasting out on Facebook and YouTube streaming. I've already sent a message to our staff to put up that Google Doc, and I've also sent a message to them to put up all of the links and resources that have been commented upon in the Zoom. So please don't forget to include me. You can just email info@brooklineinteractive.org. That comes to our entire team, and anything that you want on the channels that needs to get up right away. Just message it as urgent, and we'll put it up on the channels day or night, weekend or weekday.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and thanks to you and your team You've been an absolute heroine throughout all of this, keeping the select board, various boards, committees, and commissions, keeping our business running virtually. You've been a tremendous asset. And throughout this, and when all this is said and done, we really need to talk about how we can greater support the Brookline Interactive Group because of how much you've meant before this crisis, but especially during this crisis. You're an absolute asset to the community. So we'll make sure that we give you the support that you need. I think that's really important.
Thank you so much. I'll pass that on to our team.
Got it. I also wanted to say just a couple things. For me, the reason that I ended up moving to Brookline in the first place was because of this community, because of the small business environment here. I remember as a student at BU many years ago, coming to the Coolidge Corner area in particular and thinking just how amazing it all looked, and spending time at the Booksmith and the theater and all the various restaurants and everything in between. You have my commitment as a select board member, as the chair of the Small Business Development Community, and as a resident of Brookline, my commitment to do everything I can to help you succeed during these times. And I know that that Cara, Meredith, and everyone on our team is committed to doing the same. We don't know how things will unfold over the days and weeks to come, but one thing we do know after hearing today's discussion is that this will not be the last time we host one of these sessions. In fact, we're planning one for next week, and there'll be more details to come on that. I just want to thank you all for your time, for your strength, for your compassion during this crisis. We will get through this, and we'll do it together. So thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you. And that concludes our meeting. Look forward to meeting in session with the Small Business Development Committee again very soon as well. So we'll be talking. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.